move on to our next session, demonstrating the success GCC stories, journey of innovation and delivering business value, for which I'd like to invite Abhinav Goel, Senior Vice President, SSF Global, and he will then invite his eminent panelists turn by turn. Over to you, Abhinav.
In SSF Global across geographies with multiple partners that we have, there are many success stories that we very closely track. Some success stories we have been a part of very integrally, and many success stories that inspire us and that allow us to spread the word across the industry so that more people can benefit by understanding where other people made mistakes, how did they recover, how did they actually eventually succeed. And to demonstrate those success stories today, we requested 4 very influential GCC leaders to share those stories with us. What we're going to do is we're going to follow a little bit of a TED Talk format here. We thought we'll make it slightly different from the other panel discussions. So I'm going to be inviting my chosen leaders today. The first one who will come up on stage and talk about his success story is a global citizen, person of UK nationality, but has lived in 5 different locations. He heads a GCC or a GBS, which has 3,700 members. When he joined or started leading this GBS organization, the attrition rate was 18%. He brought it down to 8%. This organization that he's leading is the #1 across all industries, all sectors. #1 great place to work. So a tremendous people leader, somebody who's been driving transformation, somebody who's very inspirational. My pleasure and privilege to invite on the stage and give the stage to John Dawber. Round of applause for John, please.
Thank you very much. It's here. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Damien, you'll be pleased to know it's not you. The second Brit on the stage this morning, but the photo was of him, not me. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all, and it's an absolute pleasure. So my name is John, and I work for a company called Novo Nordisk. And those of you that are perhaps not familiar with Novo Nordisk, do we have some slides, by the way, folks? Those of you that are not familiar with Novo Nordisk, we're a pharmaceutical company. So we're a medical company. We are just more than 100 years old, headquartered in Denmark. Some people confuse me as Danish. I'm not. I'm a Brit. But I've had the privilege of working in the UK, in Denmark, in Japan, in Thailand, and now for the last 3 years heading this GCC here in India. My background is mostly sales and marketing. So I started life as a sales representative promoting medicines to doctors in the UK and hospital doctors in the UK. What can I tell you about Novo Nordisk? Well, I said we're quite an old company. 95 of those 100 years were the world leader, the world market leader in insulin. In fact, if any of you know somebody who takes insulin for their diabetes, there's a 1 in 2 chance that it's one of ours. We treat about 35 million people every day, keeping them alive with their insulin. For the last decade, we've been a little bit more famous for other treatments, including one that those of you that are on Instagram probably find, which is treatments for obesity and weight loss. But still, diabetes is a big part of our core. Now, with 3 years of this GCC head role, I've been to many of these kind of functions. And there's one thing that I often hear, and it's that we must demand a seat at the table. And I'm going to put it to you that I think we've got that upside down. In my career, think of my career in sales. If I demanded a seat in the doctor's office, I wasn't going to get very far. My part of my career in marketing, if I demanded that our sales force implement the strategies that I initiated, I don't get very far. In the general manager role of an affiliate, if I demanded that our employees did what I said, I didn't get very far. However, if I earn a seat at the table through value creation, engagement, and collaboration, we get a really long way. So my kind of message to you this morning would be in my humble and rather limited experience in the GCC world, then earning a seat at the table is the right way to go rather than demanding a seat at the table. So a little bit about Novo Nordisk's GCC. You can see it's quite old. We started in 2007. We started as a transactional service center, a little bit of IT, a little bit of finance, 400 or 500 people. And then over the next decade, we grew slowly. But the transformation has really happened in the last 5 years, actually as we've started to demonstrate value to the enterprise, as Damien was talking about. For us, whilst we started with 2 pillars, IT and finance, we now have 17. So if you think of anything that a pharmaceutical company may do, pretty much, it exists in our GCC, either globally owned with our place in Bangalore or at a peer-to-peer level with our headquarters in Denmark. And the key learning there being that continuing to show value, to demonstrate value, is the way to get that seat at the table. So these 4 pillars that I thought about and kind of distilled when I first arrived here in India became my way of earning that seat at the table. Because I inherited a situation where actually in India, Novo Nordisk wasn't very famous. None of you had heard of Novo Nordisk GCC, and we couldn't hire good people. And actually our hiring process was also pretty awful, both from an internal and a candidate perspective. It was taking us more than 100 days to hire somebody. So we put a detailed process optimization into that, and of course what happened is that time to hire was halved. So yeah, so what? That's cool, isn't it? But the point being that my focus on my customer, and in this case my customer is all our 100 affiliates around the world and our headquarters who wanted to hire people in Bangalore, I was delivering value in terms of talent attraction. Then it came to talent retention, so I inherited an attrition of 18%. Now maybe many of you in your GCCs think, well, that's kind of normal, and you know, we live with that here in India. But as a customer of a GCC, that wasn't very good, because every time I wanted to engage with somebody in Bangalore, they were either just joining, just leaving, or there was a period when there was nobody there at all. So we spent a ton of time looking at employee engagement, benefits, how we could create people to have careers within our own organization. And that attrition today, ladies and gentlemen, is 6%. So it can be done. Then the third part of our initiative was really culture. And that was, I suppose, a sort of special interest subject of mine, having moved from UK to Denmark to Japan to Thailand and to India. Can I be the cultural translator, if you like, for our company? And help the Danish organization or the affiliates around the world understand the culture here, and help our colleagues and particularly our leaders be able to develop cross-cultural leadership skills. Ton of investment in that. It adds value to the enterprise, it adds value to the organization. People get great careers and the whole system starts to move nicely. And then finally, House in Order. Well, House in Order was just some mess that I inherited, to be honest, on a compliance level, and really needed to fix. So I'm sure, as we've heard from previous speaker, you know, compliance is critical and you have yours under control. but for us it was a priority from day one. So when I talk about business value, what kind of things are we doing these days? So having earned the seat at the table, we're now able to really propose major efficiency, cost and growth opportunities for our enterprise. And if I just very quickly pick on four, with our omnichannel organization, we have about 150 people sitting in Bangalore that are developing digital promotional and marketing content for the whole world. So previously we would have 80 affiliates making their own stuff. Now it's done in Bangalore and served to every one of our affiliates and even translated into other languages. And just the simple cost avoidance there is, in the lovely Danish kroner, which no one understands unless you work in Novo, it's about $20 million per year, just from that one relatively small team. Then, you know, Damien was talking about AI. The beauty of working in this country, and particularly in Bangalore, of course, is that there are lots of AI startups that you can collaborate with. So clinical reporting is an area where it's staffed by about 100 medical doctors who author regulatory documents to be sent to regulatory authorities all around the world. And the formatting of those, sadly, is different for almost every country. So medical doctors are still authoring these documents with a little bit of help of AI, but before those documents leave the organization, they have to be quality checked. So we had a medical doctor also checking those for quality. Now we've imported an AI tool, and now the quality checking is automated. It's saved about 70% in time, so one document used to be 40 hours to check. It's now an hour or less than an hour, and we've been able to onshore to India much more medical writing work for the globe. So a nice example, if you like, of being able to add value. Then in supply chain, so Novo Nordisk as a biotech company, we have about a dozen huge factories making our insulins and GLP-1s around the world, and all the planning of what those factories make is now centralized in Bangalore. So whatever happens this week, next week, or 6 months from now in a factory in Brazil is decided by some guys in our place. And the value add and the consistency of which we can operate our global supply chain is super important. And then back to a fourth AI kind of initiative in our global medical affairs organization. So that's a team of, again, medical doctors who are developing medical strategies, and a lot of it PowerPoint, out for affiliate use around the world. A little bit like the omnichannel, but for the medical organizations. And using a tool which we've been able to import, again, the time is saved by 70 or 80% in that organization to be able to do more and add greater value, greater speed, greater impact to the whole enterprise. So my final slide, and perhaps the message to you all, would be maybe less of the demand and more of the seek to understand. The moment we as GCC leaders spend time understanding our customer, who our customer is, and in our case, that is our affiliates and our enterprise, the better we serve the organization, the greater the trust, the greater the impact, the greater the value we create. And with that, thank you very much.
And so rightly mentioned, you earn it, you don't ask for it, you don't request for it, and so much to learn for each one of us as a leader. I'm sure you will find time to grab John when we're all having a coffee and speak about how did he do that. Thank you, John, for that fantastic talk. The next leader I'm going to request to join us here on the stage is somebody who worked with the same organization that I did. I spoke about American Express yesterday. Once you work with Amex, you sort of leave a little bit of Amex inside you for all your life. So this leader's also spent a few years at Amex and has worked with many other organizations like Goel, EY as a partner, and is now heading the GBS for Ericsson. Yesterday we saw the team of Ericsson here winning the award for the kind of work that they've done for their global organization. We saw the women power on stage. Anjali Singh is a leader I'm going to request to come on the stage. Anjali is a strong leader of diversity and inclusion besides her work, and there is a fantastic story that she'd love to share with us, and I am very curious to learn about that, Anjali. So the stage is all yours.
Okay, wow. And which way do I go with this? Okay, great. So first of all, good morning, everyone, and it is a pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me here. And I'm going to follow, a very, very powerful tech story that Damien told you, and John with his key lessons on GCCs and talent. I have worked for companies like American Express, and actually the longest one in my career was Genpact, almost 14 years, with Deutsche Bank, so primarily financial services, and most of my life in operations. So what I'm going to share with you is a little bit about from the operations perspective, right? What does GCC mean? What does this technology, digital revolution mean for operations people? What does it invoke? And therefore, how do we address it? And what can we do that inspires our teams instead of making them feel worried about the future or scared of what AI, RPA, and all the rest is going to do? We've been witnessing what I call the digital revolution for many years. And as an operations leader at that time, whether it was Genpact or it was Deutsche Bank, it brought about a lot of fear. What's going to happen? Are the robots going to do all our jobs? How do we deal with this? And that fear stays, right? Think of what Gen AI, agentic is doing to the world today. So how do you also, not just embrace change, how do you work with your teams to make sure they're getting ready for the future? And I'm going to quote our CEO, Poirier. I was about 3 weeks in Ericsson when I went for the leadership meeting. And Ericsson's also strategically, changing direction, thinking of where they want to go and how. And he said, the only way to, not be scared of the future is to create the future. And that's what we have to do as operations people with deep domain. We have to keep creating where we want to go and how. I joined Ericsson just 2 years ago. In fact, it's going to be 2 years in October. And so I'm going to talk about this much used, somewhat abused word called transformation, which I think everyone says, we're transforming. But what does it really mean? And I'm also going to talk to you about how a company that may have been a little late to the game has embraced transformation and leapfrogged to be actually very competitive with everyone else in industry. So a little bit about our evolution. Ericsson has had their shared services centers for many years, but they were in silos. So there was the HR services, shared services, there was finance, there was sourcing, there was every function having their own semi-shared services, which was either sitting in the GCC or sitting anywhere globally. GBS for Ericsson was actually created only in 2022, late to the game, a lot of people would say, because GBSs for other companies are about 10, 12 years old. And I joined as the head of GBS in October 2023. But here's what we did, and I think I'm going to repeat a little bit of this. As you come in, and you now finally not have siloed shared services, but you actually have all of those shared services brought under one umbrella, and it's called GBS. So here's what I walk into. You need to own these teams. And when I talk of Ericsson GBS, I said it yesterday as well, we are not just the GCC in India. I lead GBS globally. So I have teams sitting in Mexico, in Bucharest, in Manila, in Beijing. I have most of my leadership team spread out throughout the globe with people sitting in different countries, and it's been fabulous. So when we are driving the GBS agenda, the transformation, we're not just doing it for India. It's multicultural, so it's globalization. In other words, that I think we all have to embrace, because you have to have global standards as you build it, but you have to be mindful of the local impact that it can have in all of our centers. So 2023 was fairly tactical. GBS is set up. GBS is given very ambitious goals. And now what does GBS do with that? And in 2024, you again heard some of this already. You have to get a great team together. You saw some of them on stage with me yesterday, but a lot of my team is in other parts of the world. So you have to have the right leadership to be able to lead what you want to create. You have to have a vision that people can connect to. And then you have to be willing to inspire people, because remember, we're talking of operations. GBS is operations wonderland. GBS is people who are very, very good at the roles that they do. They're very, very deep in the domain that they have, but they're not necessarily technocrats. And so sometimes they get overwhelmed with cloud, Gen AI, agentic. Where are we going? Oh my God, what's going to happen? Because GBS is also about efficiency, right? That is the bottom line. You want to be able to bring value. I actually feel as an operations leader, take away the word efficiency and let's talk about the value that we're creating for the company. And that should be your KPI. Not your turnaround time, not your quality, but what's the value that you give the company every day. We launched the GBS culture strategy. We had to make sure it was felt across the globe. It wasn't just India, but it was every center that we have and we drive change in. And we began something called the Unified GBS Integrated Help Desk. What was this? Again, like I said, and this is one of the most transformative things that we've done, and not just us, but I think in industry. It is one of the bigger transformations that has taken place. Instead of every unit having its own customer service help desk, chat, etc., we brought it onto one platform. We brought it onto a Gen AI platform. We envisaged what this would do in February 2024. We went live in November 2024. And I have dealt with technology projects throughout my life, and I can tell you, they usually run late. They don't deliver what they promise. This one was just about a month late, and it's delivering what it promised. We've already brought in all of the Gen AI capability and taken self-service down by about 50%. So now we're moving to the next frontier where it's not just the how-to, but it's going to be about system updates and system checks. And that's where agentic is stepping in. And what this year has been about has been executing the roadmaps across GBS for each of the functions to deliver that. We're creating the value. We've upskilled our teams to be able to embrace that. We've got, and I'll show you that at the very end, we've actually mapped out all of our processes to say, what is the potential of where we can go? And what is it that we can create for the company? Lastly, we work and we constantly think of what's the art of the possible. And we take inspiration from other GBS companies, where they've gone. We're also building our own capability to be able to do much more for Ericsson. And as we speak this year, many more functions are knocking on our door to say, how can you help us with this? Because we are creating the brand of being, not just the function that's bringing it together and running operations, but the function that can help you create your Gen AI strategy, help you understand how agentic is done, and help you transform your operations, whichever area it may be in the next 12 to 18 months. I keep joking with my boss, we should now think of how we monetize this, but maybe that also at some point will happen. What are the pillars that we stand on, right? And again, I guess GBS, GCCs are operating with similar principles. But like I said, I don't want to be the cost efficiency arm of the company. Cost arbitrage is always good. Cost is always very important for the firm. But because GBS for us is global, yes, there's some value in cost, but there's got to be more value in what you're doing, that you actually do have the skills to transform, that you're aware of the technologies that are in play here. And so you're the innovation, and you're the innovative, transformative hub for the company. We participated, and that was a first for us in 2024. We decided to participate in what the IT function used to run, the IT Innovation Challenge. And I said, you know what, let's go partner with them and say GBS is part of this too. And we did it. And I told my leaders and my teams, I need 10 ideas, guys, the IT guys are like, so smart and they're like, truly developing solutions, but let's get 10 ideas on the board. And then I'm fine. I don't expect us to win, but I just want to create the culture. We went neck to neck. We got 45 ideas. IT had 45 ideas. Finally, long story short, in the top 3 ideas that are chosen by a jury of Ericsson, GBS had the idea that came first and the idea that came third. So that's transformative, and I think that's a cultural change that you're bringing about, helping people challenge status quo and take it to the next level. I've got gender diversity here. I gotta go faster, okay? Because I do believe that you have to have diversity. Gender is important, but across everything. And unless we upskill our workforce, we will continue to be scared. So don't just help your operations teams understand domain, but help them understand, emerging technologies. What does it do? What does it mean? And build their readiness for the future. We have hybrid teams, or the future will bring hybrid teams, so also skill your leaders with how to manage those. You've got a team which is going to have 10 bots and 5 humans finally. And how will you manage something like that versus 20 humans that you were used to? Like I said, we are slowly, with partnership with our own IT function and other partners, I think we're very close to being one of the leaders, or very competitive in the agentic AI execution that we are in the middle of. Operations always has compliance. You have to stay true to the guardrails, because like somebody already said, unless you're mindful of that, you can actually create huge risk and exposure for your company. And partnerships with your internal stakeholders, with external stakeholders, driving what's best for your customer. This is where we want to go. I won't get into this, but we're here, we're right at the start, and where we want to actually go, and we've called it 3 different horizons. We have productivity, which is a given, which is an obvious one, but I think more importantly, it's really about how we're upskilling our teams and how we're embracing technology, because the rate that it's moving at today is incomprehensible. I don't think the past 10 years have brought about the kind of change and disruption that the next 2 years can bring. And so I don't even know what I don't know. And that's not a fear, that's actually something fairly exciting for us to move forward and think about. But ultimately, we want to have the entire, integrated value chains that are delivering for the company, for our customers. And that's still, I think, just the beginning. Operations will change. People will do better content, higher value jobs. And like somebody again already said, I think the Adani leader, he said he's committed that they won't change the FTE number, but they will do far more. And it's something like that, building capacity, building data analytics, bringing insights. Actually, people should feel better about it too. And that's what I tell my operations teams. Why do you want to do a job that actually a bot could do for you? Why don't you think of how you upskill, go to the next level, and forget the transactional part of your job? Let somebody else do it. Let technology aid you in that part of the job. But don't be scared to embrace it and hold on to what you're doing today, because it's worrying you so much. Am I way over time? Yeah, is it? Okay. So with that, I'm actually going to hand over, but thanks so much for having me here, and it's a truly exciting journey that we're on.
Thank you, Anjali. So absolutely, you're not knocking at the doors. You have broken the doors down by the kind of work that you're doing and the need that you have created across partners and beyond the existing partners. I mean, what I love to hear was that there are people who are actually asking you, can you do this for us? And that's fabulous. And I hope at some point in time, Anjali, your team would actually start monetizing all the great products and services you're creating. Thank you so much. So now it's time for some Hollywood-style storytelling on this stage. I hope everybody's ready for some Hollywood here. The next leader I'm going to invite on stage is currently the leader for Warner Brothers Discovery, GBS Center. He has vast experience of setting up, scaling up, transforming GBS centers, worked across multiple organizations, American Express, IBM Dux, Deloitte, Goldman Sachs, and now, of course, Warner Brothers Discovery. A leader who is extremely well known in the GCC leadership circles, a very active participant, of course, with SSF, but also with other forums like NASSCOM. My pleasure and privilege to invite Jaideep. Jaideep Agarwal, please join me join on the stage and share your story with us.
All right, can you hear me? I think I got the, I have this mic. All right, perfect. Good morning, everyone. I think we can do a much better job. Good morning, everyone. Absolutely, thank you. What I thought was I will quickly share what's the business we are in. And instead of me telling you what business we are in, let's watch a video of what business we are in. So can we just switch off these lights? Is that a possibility? Just these ones? Except for these, those ones went off. So that's okay, I'll try. So what industry are we in? Perfect. What industry are we in? So every time I ask this question or get this question, I'm just told we are in the media and entertainment industry. And it's so interesting. Our CEO says we are in the business of storytelling. We tell stories and we create content and we distribute that content. So let's just see who we are from.
Ready?
Let's do it, Cronkite.
Superman.
Miss Lane.
We have a mission. Be like no other. Push what's possible, way past the impossible.
I'm only the curtain raiser. Here's the main attraction.
We like to open doors to new worlds here. Worlds that exhilarate.
We're back, baby!
Places that captivate.
Are you ready? Here we go.
Universes that fascinate.
Once we start, there's no going back.
This is it!
And can we have the lights back on? I'd like to describe our journey back here in GBS Center is we are a startup with a 100-year legacy. We were born about 3 years back. So what was the challenge which we were facing? So Discovery acquired Warner Brothers from AT&T and the deal got consummated in April 2022. So, and when the two firms came together, the idea was what is the best way for us to leverage our global capabilities? What's the best way to look at content in a global format? So that was our biggest challenge. How do you integrate this kind of a complexity and with industry-wide disruptions, because it was right in the middle of the Hollywood strikes when we decided to set up our center here in India. So how did we approach it? So over the years, we had set up single purpose centers around with different parts of the combined entity. There was something we had in Knoxville, Atlanta. We set up something in Mexico in 2022. Warsaw, we have a big presence in Warsaw. We are the largest media company in Poland through TVN and something earlier. So as we came together in April of 2022, we decided to open up a Hyderabad office, and we actually, the decision got taken in September 23, and Feb is when we started our operations in Hyderabad. Now, the key aspect is, one of the key elements which I discussed with our CFO was, hey, we need to make this center a strategic component of the entire Warner Brothers Discovery ecosystem. Otherwise, no one ever is going to take us seriously. So we commenced operations in Feb. We launched HBO Max, that's our global OTT platform, and we actually started working towards the launch of global HBO Max right from day one out here in our center. So something commendable. Today we've got over 120 million subscribers on HBO Max, and some of the clips which you saw on The Last of Us or White Lotus, etc., they are there. So May 23 is when we did that. So again, we series of multiple acquisitions, right? So we exist in 5 different ERPs. You name an ERP and we sit on those ERPs. So what did we do? We said, okay, let's bring all of them together. So we went through an ERP transformation exercise, and which again, we started here both from a technology perspective as well as from a user standpoint in September of 23. And then when we inaugurated our existing center, my CFO asked me a simple question, Jaideep, how do you want me to help you be successful? And one of the key things I asked him was, you bring your entire leadership to India, only then people will understand what's the strategic value of this is. He said, done. And March of 2023, he's a Chief Finance and Operating Officer. He came down here with his entire leadership to make sure that everyone in his leadership is able to see what is there in this center, what kind of talent can you get out of this center. Believe me, I started my journey in the GBS GCC space in Amex in way back in 2000. There are a few questions I am still answering, which we used to answer way back in 2000. Do people understand English? Do people do this, X, Y, Z? Because still a legacy of 100 years where we had been so much straitjacketed under our Hollywood studio in Burbank, people did not know to anything outside of that. So there are still some of those kind of questions. So he brought his entire operating leadership and the finance leadership in March. And then the interesting thing happened. So in our case, the CIO rolls up to the CFO, and when the CIO came and his team came to India, they were looking at, hey, let's start with a couple of basic transactional stuff around services, etc. and all. So I just took them around, and I'm sure there are a couple of other leaders sitting here from the other GCCs to just help them understand, you know what kind of work happens in India. So one of the GCCs we went to, and they said, you know what, 4 out of the 8 direct reports of the CIO sit here in this Hyderabad office. Another leader we went and met, she said, you know what, I run the global enterprise system. I'm the leader for all global corporate enterprise systems. I'm sitting here in Hyderabad. And that forced the CIO to rethink the entire operating model, saying what were we smoking? What were we thinking when we were thinking in terms of basic transactional level services, etc. So fundamentally, we changed the entire operating model, and we hired a global enterprise data and analytics leader who reports directly into the CIO out here in India. So long story short, I think the idea was we do not have to go through the 10-15 years of a maturity journey which firms have gone through, because there's a lot which we can learn from those firms and really kickstart our journey way ahead of the curve versus having to go all the way back and start from there. So we hired the leader, we had a CIO leadership offsite. So what's happening is that within a year of being set up here, when you bring some of these entire leaderships out into the centers, you are fundamentally changing the entire thought process. That immersive experience of what they are getting out here, it's phenomenal. So and now we started revenue support functions. So a lot of the content which you see out there, we are beginning to support that content out of the center here. So think of something as post-production, right? So we have a lot of raw content which gets generated, like through all our cameras and everything what we do. Now there's a lot what happens between the time the raw content gets delivered to our what we call as the studio operations or content operations team, to the time you actually see something out there on the screens, right from editing, photo editing / video editing, dubbing, content localization, ingest, QC. There are multiple different things. Like it's like the what in a IT parlance what you call is the blue screen of death. If you have even 1 nanosecond of a black screen of on your live OTT platform or a television platform, that's it, you are done essentially. So a lot of that work now we are beginning to do out of our Hyderabad office. So that's what we, as I said, we are looking at revenue support functions, and we just touched. So we are on our 2nd year anniversary now, and we just touched about 1,000 people as our head count in our 2-year journey. So that's kind of just give you a sense of what our journey was. So what were some of our, I would say, key takeaways or what went well? One was leadership alignment. Clearly having the CFO being the key sponsor, asking me on day one, what do you need for me to be, for the center to be successful? Absolutely, top to bottom, everybody is aligned to make sure that yes, this is where we want to belong. A very supportive local ecosystem. I would say so many of my colleagues in different other GCCs who we went to, when they shared their stories, It's way better than me going and telling them, hey, that's possible, because you know what, I'm an insider. I'll just say it for the fact that I would like more and work coming. But the local ecosystem here in Hyderabad, extremely supportive. Cultural cross connection. So how do you make sure that this is not seen as an outpost, or this is not seen as something separate? So how do you make sure that the two, the mothership, and in this case we had a multi-country mothership is what I would say. There we have studios in Hollywood, we have got a Harry Potter world out of London, there's something in Japan. We ensured that from a cross-cultural standpoint, there is a connection established on this. A very nimble operating model. So when we started on this journey, we thought we will bring all the different functions and sub-functions under a single umbrella called GBS, and then GBS will functionally own and do this. So we started with a few areas in finance, but then what happens is you run into this wall with other functions saying like, hey, these are my crown jewels. I don't want to give away my crown jewels for you. So we pivoted. We pivoted saying, instead of bringing everybody onto a single common GBS as a function, here's the capability center. Think of it as a landlord-tenant model. Here's a platform. You jump onto the platform and do what you want, as long as you are sticking to some of these common basic principles. And then leveraging our brand. Of course, it's a 100-year legacy. So we were able to leverage our brand from a talent attraction standpoint. What could we have done differently? I would say, while we did a good job, we probably need a little more improved leadership awareness, because nothing can absolutely substitute when you have a leadership immersion in your office out there, and suddenly you see the psychological distance narrows down pretty significantly. So that's one. More strategic top-down hiring approach. I mean, in the aspect of speed, we ended up hiring a lot of middle/lower end jobs earlier versus hiring the leader first, and then realizing, hey, that was not one of the best approaches to this whole thing. And the last one I would say is more support for our new leaders and managers, because as they're coming from different parts of the other organizations, etc., we just need to make sure that how do you bring them together and take them along in this journey from a cultural sensitization perspective. So that's what I wanted to share. I know my time's up, and so that's where it is. That's how I like to end my journey on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaideep. I bet you didn't believe me when I said it's time for Hollywood-style storytelling. Very interesting, exciting, and obviously many of my favorite shows and movies in that video, which I totally enjoyed. Once again, you know, the theme is having the courage, taking the power, and becoming more influential. So much to learn for the GCCs that are being set up. They are still moving up the maturity curve. Find time to talk to these amazing leaders during the breaks to learn more. The next leader that I'm going to invite, the fourth and the last one on this particular set for me, is somebody who is defined beyond his work as well. He's doing inspirational work. He spent more than 2 decades with IBM, where he started his career, and now he is the Vice President for the UPS India Technology Center, Dr. Subramani Ramakrishnan. Please give a round of applause to Dr. Subramani Ramakrishnan. And he's done so much more than technology. He's an author of a best-selling book. He's known as a speaker. He participates in multiple activities besides his work, and he has no slides today. So we're looking forward to the notes that he has scribbled on a piece of paper and the story that you have, Dr. Ramakrishnan.
Thank you, and very good morning. Some of these sessions are really helping, one, to learn from each other, and the second, okay, we are not doing all that bad, and everyone has the same set of problems. Getting a seat on the table, getting the right talent, convincing the mothership, and all of that, right? So pretty much similar problems that we have. So I represent UPS, United Parcel Service. I think this crowd may not need an introduction for UPS. Yes? Okay. Because when after spending 26 years in IBM, I was looking for a second career, to be honest, right? And I was looking at teaching as a career, and I did my PhD and all of that, and I was getting ready, and then this opportunity came in. So then I thought, okay, let me do this, maybe for some years, and I'll have more stories to tell my students whenever I go to my second career. So that's how I ended up here. A very interesting roller coaster ride for the last couple of years. But when I said I'm joining UPS, many of my friends did not know what UPS was. But then I was telling my mom, I'm joining UPS, and she was very happy. I was surprised a bit. Mom, are you okay? I mean, are you sure you're happy? Yeah, finally someone who will fix our batteries at home, ensure that the distilled water levels are maintained and all that. That's what UPS is known for, uninterrupted power supply. But this United Parcel Service, friends, Fortune 40 company, a 118-year-old company. Next week, we are celebrating our 118th anniversary, which also marks the second anniversary of the GCC in India. And a bit of data, we deliver about 20 million parcels every day. 20 million parcels every day, right? And in terms of value of goods that go on our network, it's about 2% of world's GDP every day, right? So someone was telling me, if the world's economy goes down by, say, 20% or so, we get into a recession. So for 2 weeks, if our network doesn't go, right? So that's the criticality of the whole mission that we are in. We have about 600 cargo flights. In terms of number of flights, if you rank, we'll be probably the top 10 airlines in the world. We get about 700 million hits on our website. So if we were a Google or a search engine, we'll be probably a top 10 search engine. So that's the kind of impact and intensity. Because otherwise, I don't do anything exotic like my previous speakers, right? Like Warner Bros. It's not a Hollywood story. All that we do is deliver parcels. You send in a parcel, I deliver from point A to point B. That's all I do. But just that we do in scale, right? And another interesting thing about UPS is we all say parcels, but then I was corrected a couple of times. We deliver emotions. Okay, we don't deliver parcels, we deliver emotions. And it's very true, very true. We don't call our trucks as trucks. You know what we call them? Package cars. For a reason. And our color is Pullman brown. Pullman coaches are like our Vande Bharat trains, right? The luxurious coaches in UK and other places. So we chose a color which symbolizes luxury, and just like the comfort that these coaches would give, we would want to give the same comfort to our packages. We deliver emotions. And I'm told of some stories of our drivers. They are like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So there was an old lady who used to order every day something through UPS just because she wants to see the driver. And she would have kept coffee and cookies ready for him. He will come, laugh, give a hug, deliver the parcel and go. So it's that kind of an activity. But while we are a logistics company, at heart we are technology, right? So except for the first mile and the last mile, where 90% of our workforce are our loaders, truckers, drivers, and all of them, it's only less than 10%, which is the white collar job, as we can say, the marketing, finance, and technology. It's less than 10%. That's all we are, right? But that's what powers the whole thing. And we are very close to having near dark warehouses, near dark hubs, where except for the inbound and the outbound, the rest is all automated. And that's where our technology center comes in on what we do. And Indian talent is not new for us. I was on the other side, sitting in IBM and serving UPS with about 1,400 consultants. And then now they have disappeared, by the way. It's all moved in-house or whatever. So what did we do? So why did we come into India, right? So there are 3 reasons why we started the GCC. 1, to move the core IP in-house. The second is the talent demographics. And the third is getting closer to the market. So what is this core IP in-house? Subbu, you are bluffing. You are delivering parcel from point A to point B. What is core IP in this? Right question? So there is a secret sauce for each one of us, be it UPS or FedEx or Amazon or USPS, US Postal Service, right? In all, about 80 million parcels move in the network every day in US. In that, about 35 to 40 million is Amazon, and the remaining 40 million is delivered by these 3 players, UPS, FedEx, and USPS. What works for us will not work for FedEx. UPS is a highly unionized workforce. We own the fleet, we own the trucks, we fill the tank every day with gas, right? So we have a different set of challenges, problems, and all that. FedEx is a non-unionized workforce. Amazon uses gig workforce. And then USPS can come to the finance analyst and say, oh, guys, you know what, we made a few $1 billion losses. right? So that's a government postal service anyway, right? So each one of us have a different set of prerogatives and priorities, and there is a secret sauce in each one of us that works uniquely for us. For example, there is an Orion routing algorithm which saves about 100 million miles for our drivers. We have about 150,000 drivers, 150,000 package cars that go around the world, right? So how do I ensure that every mile I save means a lot for me to the bottom line, right? So we have this Orion proprietary routing software much before Google came with their Google Maps. Way back in 2003 we had, right? So these are some of the technologies that the team works on, right? And we are using AI in our customer center and all of that. So definitely there is a secret sauce. But then the problem is, how do I develop this core IP in-house? So the first mission for which we started our GCC was moving the core IP in-house. But then how do I build this? Because today, I'm sure this is another common problem that many of us have in GCCs. Today in IT, people will say, I'm a Java developer, I'm a .NET developer, I'm a QA, I'm an architect. Nobody will say, I'm a supply chain professional with Java full stack or whatever, right? So how do I bring this domain bit of it into these guys? And when they don't know the unique things or challenges that are very, very specific to UPS, how do I build that domain expertise? So that is one challenge we have. But for the last 2 years, we have done a few things. We take them to the warehouses, we take them to our gateways, which we have in Bangalore and Delhi. Delhi, every day there are 2 flights coming in, right? So we take them to the gateways, we help them understand the brokerage operations and all of that and build the domain. So the first mission for which we came in was moving the core IP in-house. The second is the talent demographics, right? And all of us know this. We have an average in the country of about in the late 20s, right? And then Europe is somewhere in the 40s, America's in the 40s, probably Japan is in the 50s and all that. And for a 118-year-old company, if we have to write the history for the next 100 years, we need to see where the talent lies, where we can get the right talent pool. So definitely we are here for that, right? So, and developing this. And we did a few things unique, which I'm very passionate about. The president of UPS Americas, Nando Cicerone, he's with us for about 35 years. He started as a driver, right? And today he is responsible for bringing in $80 billion of the $90 billion of the company, right? So people rise through the ranks. So how do we create that culture here? And here, to a recruit, and talent acquisition is something that, John, you also spoke about, right? You talk to someone about gratuity, they give a damn to it. Oh, gratuity, I have to stay in the company for 4.5 years to get that, right? So how do I create that aspiration to grow and learn and all that long term, right? So we did a few things. One is Palam. Palam in Tamil means returnship program. So we have people, men and women, this is another interesting thing, right? Even men take career breaks. So men and women after career breaks, they want to come back. So how do we ensure that all things being equal, we help them come back, right? And then first generation graduates. So that's something that we are very passionate about, because UPS is a company where people, after school, they join as a part-time, they enroll to a college, UPS pays their fees, and then they get to a desk side job, supervisor and all of that, right? So how do I ensure that, and Chaudhary sir was telling yesterday, right? So about tier 2 cities and all that. So all of that, we go to remote places and hire first generation graduates. So these are some of the things that we kind of do to create that you belong at UPS culture and bring that talent which sticks with us for a long time. And the third and most important thing, closer to the market, I'll wrap it up. So closer to the market is, the advanced economies are going at 1.5% or whatever the GDP growth, but Asian is growing at 4 to 4.5, right? So clearly if you see, and there is also a significant shift of trade lines. Pretty much all the non-leather goods manufacturers have shifted from China to Tamil Nadu actually. Right, I'm pitching a bit of Tamil Nadu in Hyderabad. So all Crocs, Adidas, Nike, all of them have moved to. So as a logistics company, can I get closer to my clients, to my global clients, and see what I can do? All of your iPhones are being manufactured and assembled in Tamil Nadu and other places, right? So how do I get closer to the client? So that is another third reason why we started it. So clearly we are shifting gears. What got us here so far, the first 2 years, it was all about growth. Now we are shifting to the nurture phase, and that's where, yesterday and today has been quite insightful. And I would definitely take a few lessons from here as we grow from scale to sustain. So we are about 1,500 people now, and probably we will end up at 2,000 people by end of the year. But then it's all about building the domain, responsibility. When I start, I can't talk about innovation and value generation and all that, right? So now the time has come probably, how do I become a critical part in the whole UPS ecosystem? And the last bit of it is the culture part of it, which we are trying to bring the UPS culture and do a bit of Indianized version of that. So that's where we are. Thank you. Thanks for the patient listening.
Here, so fantastic story again, a company with a lot of heart and technology in the heart, and I hope you continue to grow because you don't want the global economy to enter a recession. So great job, thank you so much. But great stories, we had stories from Novo Nordisk, and I request John to join us once again, and the applause should not stop till all of my fantastic speakers join me on the stage. And we have Ericsson, Anjali, thank you for that fantastic story. If you could join me as well on the stage. Like I said, please don't let the applause stop. You know, these are amazing stories. And of course, Warner Brothers Discovery, Jaideep, if you could join me as well. Thank you. Thank you. Took away so much out of these sessions, so thank you so much. What we thought was we will probably have 5 minutes of audience Q&A. I'm hoping some of you would have some questions that you'd like to ask these amazing leaders. So if you have some questions, please raise your hands or think about your questions while I ask one surprise question to each one of you. Let's see if you have an answer for that. So if you, and you know, I still want the audience to think about some questions. So the question that I have for each one of you, short answer, right? If you were able to go back 20 years back in your career, what advice would you give to that young person? I mean, I'm sure you're still young, but the younger person. What advice would you give to yourself, the 20-year-ago person? Who wants to go first? Yeah.
Just build on what I said earlier, the domain part of it, right? Which is more important today than earlier. So someone was asking which engineering branch should I choose for one of my friends, and I said, I don't know which engineering, but prompt engineering is becoming more important today. So for prompt engineering, you need to know the business and the domain and the problem that you solve so that you ask the right questions. So the domain part, I would say.
I would say I started my career with Ranbaxy in sales, and that was revenue generation. Then I shifted to Amex on the finance side. So I used to wonder, why am I getting stuck in finance? This is cost, so let me get out of it. I just wish I had stayed with as the finance leader, because you are seeing more finance leaders becoming the CEOs today than the sales and marketing leaders. So yeah, that's what I would say from my perspective.
Okay, I think, so probably 10 years ago, I started living what I would have told myself 20 years ago. I would say, be bold, don't be scared of failure. And I have a blog called We Live and We Learn. And I think I believed in that for most of my life, but I would tell my younger self, keep learning, and that's what I tell most young people. Learn every day, because you're never too old to learn, and every day teaches you something. And do it without fear. So go forward.
Oh, I have to go last, huh? I think similar to you, you know, I think when I coach young folks in our organization, ambition's great. They always want to move on to the next bigger thing. But I would probably say get good at something. Get good at something, do it well, enjoy it, but also ask questions and be curious. And perhaps in my earlier career, I was always desperate to look, what's the next thing, rather than have good domain expertise.
Well, thank you so much, John. And each one of you, great answers once again, as I expected. So audience, would you have any questions before we wrap this session up? Okay. Look at the middle of the room.
And you're very right. I think regulatory compliance, especially in certain fields, is something we all have to work towards. And you've mentioned one of it. You mentioned the whole pricing aspect of a GCC, right? But as we go forward, I think there are other things to be mindful of. Look at where data privacy is going. And therefore, how long is it before countries start saying, we don't want our data, say in UK or in Europe, to be managed or looked at by anyone sitting outside this country? That's a potential threat. And then when we think of this whole AI journey, right? What are the controls, what are the guardrails that you've got in place that you need to be sure of, not just for your own process compliance, but regulatory compliance. And there are countries, as we speak, states, countries, that are actually passing AI laws of what can or cannot be done. So I do think that's a whole Pandora's box to be unlocked and thought through about where's the future going, and therefore, how are we thinking of all of the compliance internally, but also sort of regulatory, industry-facing country laws, and how prepared should we get for that in India?
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks for bringing it up. It's that elephant in the room, which everybody acknowledges. I think there are two aspects to it. I also sit on the NASSCOM GCC Executive Council as well. So we are already beginning to take it up. CII recently did a session in India where our finance minister was invited. I think the fact that she mentioned about GCCs contributing upwards of 2 to 2.5% and how we want to accelerate, there's already work happening in that area. That's all I can say at this point in time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Jaideep, for that answer as well. So with that, in the interest of time, we have a question over there. Okay, one last one, yeah.
My question is two-part. Is the leadership, international leadership, looking at GCCs as cost reduction or as a profit center also? And two, leading to it, is it more push by the GCC to get more process?
Kickstarts with the cost. Let's not run away from that. Establishment of a GCC, point number one, it kickstarts with that. The question is then there is this whole element of a push and a pull between the mothership and this. How fast you can move up the maturity curve for you to keep nibbling away more and keep asking for more stuff on this thing. But absolutely, let's not run away from one fundamental fact that the moment you establish, you've kickstarted with that. Now, lately, what's happening is there's an aspect of FOMO. Am I missing out by not being present in India? So let me just make sure we have established some presence in India. I mean, that's the way I would like to respond to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I do think it needs sponsorship from the top, but until you prove your credibility and the value, cost is just one part of it, right? What are you actually bringing? And the future, for me, India is like talent hub, innovation hub. It's the second largest startup hub in the world now. So that's really what we have to offer, and that's what should be so compelling that you get sort of buy-in on both sides.
And for us, it's the same. I mean, I think, yeah, you know, cost is the starting point, but now we're nowhere near that. We're in skills, scale, and efficiency. You know, for Novo Nordisk, it's a bit of a funny story because as a Danish company, the entire population of Denmark is about one-third the size of Bangalore. So when you're looking for scale, you can't really look in the mothership country. It doesn't exist. So therefore, skills and scale plays. But then efficiency, the more we do in our place, the more efficiency we can drive and the more productivity we can drive. But cost has gone maybe a decade ago.
All right, thank you so much for all the participation. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Abhinav, for curating that session rather wonderfully well. I'd like to invite Rakesh Sinha, please, Senior Vice President, SSF Global. I'm sorry, that's Abhinav. Yeah, that's for you. I definitely need coffee. आपका औहदा गिरा दिया. Founder and CEO, SSF Global and Quintus, for the honoring each one of the wonderful speakers. Anjali Singh. John Dawber. And Dr. Subramani Ramakrishnan. You want a group photograph? Yes. We can have a group picture, yes. Let's have a round of applause for this wonderful panel.